Alrighty, take a breath. Look around the room. Feel your feet. Remind your body we are not in danger. We're safe. We're okay. We are loved. You'll hear that refrain quite a bit. Thank you for being here with me. You're not late. You're not behind. You are here. That's a win already. So, before we dive in, I do want to remind you, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you believe that what you're getting out of me adds some value to your life, please head on over to andreaferguson.com to join our Telegram community, because that's where the real conversations happen between episodes. Welcome to The Fight. I'm your host, Andrea Ferguson, and this show exists because I want to help you stay operational when everything else is falling apart. And to be clear about what we're doing here, at our core, we all want the same things, as I said, to be safe, to be loved, to be okay. And these are not shallow desires. They are survival imperatives written and coded into our very DNA. So when things happen like markets crash, your portfolio's going wild, it's bleeding, all of that kind of stuff, when everything is red, when everything that you've built feels like it's evaporating, those core needs are triggered, and they're triggered hard. So this show is built around 3 non-negotiables: health, wealth, and freedom. Not as abstract concepts, but lived realities. And let me tell you, as one being in the crypto space with Shankar Ponsley, my partner in business and in life, hence the Crypto Alliance here, I can tell you these are lived realities. And I can tell you that your health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, it's your foundation. Your wealth is your security and your options. Your freedom is your ability to move, to choose, to respond rather than to react. And here is what this show is not. It's not just motivational speaking. It's not about positive thinking or manifesting your way out of crisis, which is not possible anyway. And there are elements that are motivational. Those are byproducts of it. But this space is meant to be tactical, emotional regulation for people who are living high-stake lives, meaning people that understand that the stakes are real. And when the stakes are real, your nervous system is either going to become your greatest ally, your greatest asset, or your biggest liability. So leave me a comment if you understand there are high stakes involved. High stakes involved. Where there is high risk, there is high reward. Type in high reward if you're on board with that. And don't forget to go to andreaferguson.com so that you can have access to the daily affirmations and the regulation tips and mantras and all of that. But today, we are going to talk about how to stay calm and clear when the markets crash. And I want to reframe something right from the start, which is the point of emotional regulation isn't just to feel better. Again, that's a wonderful byproduct. The point of emotional regulation is to move wisely. It's to maintain access to your executive function, which I'm pointing to here because that's where it all happens. And I'll show you a little bit of that a little later. But when everyone else is panicking, you stay operational. So when crypto's dropping by 40% in a day, when your portfolio loses 6 figures overnight, when the news is screaming about recession and collapse, your brain is going to do exactly what it was created to do, exactly what it was designed to do. It's going to flood your system with stress hormones. It's going to narrow your focus. It's going to push you to fight, flight, or freeze. That's all absolutely normal. It's how you're wired. So the question isn't whether it will happen. The question is, will you have trained your nervous system to work with you instead of against you? Okay. I'm sure we all want our nervous system to work with us, even when the brain has intentions to sabotage us because it doesn't know what we're doing is good for us in the long term. It just cares about the short term and protecting us. But here's the truth: nobody wants to say out loud. Most people lose money and crashes not because they picked the wrong investments, but because they couldn't regulate their emotional state long enough to make clear decisions. So they panic sell at the bottom, they freeze and miss opportunities, they make reactive moves that end up destroying years or months of careful building. Ask anybody in the financial world how easy it is to make your wealth or your nest egg come crumbling down because of decisions made in a poor emotional state. We're going to change that, not through wishful thinking, but through understanding exactly how your brain works under pressure specifically. And then I'll give you some tools to help you work with it. Does that sound good to you? If it does, give me a like, share, and let's get operational. So I'm just going to bring up my brainfacts.org interactive model so that I can show you, and then I'll share my screen, but I just want to bring it up. Okay, I brought it up now. Okay, so let me break down exactly what is happening. As I said, let's get one thing straight. If you panic when the markets crash, if you freeze when your portfolio is doing all kinds of crazy things, or even if you find yourself doom scrolling at like 3 a.m. because you're looking at financial news, right? You're not broken, you are not weak, you're not even necessarily bad with money. Again, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. So what happens in your head when the crisis hits? Let me share present screen window. Where are you, brain facts? It has gone away. Let me do this again. All right. Are you having a good day today? By the way, I wasn't going to do any segues today, but I'm going to look here. It is exactly 76 degrees, probably 75 degrees when Shankar and I were walking around outside. That's 25 degrees for all of my Celsius folks. And it's about, I want to say it's about 25 degrees in the house as well. Maybe 24.7 or something like that. So 75 degrees. 75 degrees. It's 75 degrees in this house. 75 degrees. Type in 75 degrees, or you know what? Type in too hot. If you think that is too hot, type in too hot. Oh, also David said high reward. Yes, that is correct. Nothing worth pursuing with high risk. Okay. Without high risk, right? 75 degrees. Type in too hot if you think that's too hot. 25, right? So this man says we got to go outside because it's cold in here. Oh, it's so frigid. Such an igloo. It's cold. Oh no. So we go outside, we walk around, 75 degrees. It's a little bit overcast. He says, oh gosh, It's cold out here too. I just wanted to let you know that I have built up enough resilience to be able to deal with this craziness. 76 degrees and partly cloudy is too cold for Shankar Ponsale. Too hot. No, it's not too hot. It is too cold. But let me know where you're tuning in from, what the weather is like over there, and how you deal with changes in the weather, because I think there is some analogies between changes in the weather and changes in the market and all the things that we should be aware of. We can think of, like, when things happen in the weather, you don't freak out, you don't panic, because why? Weather changes. So here you go. Here's the prefrontal cortex. Grants us executive function, or the ability to make complex and socially mindful decisions. The prefrontal cortex must filter out unimportant sensations. Sensations. Oh, hello to you, Michael from Nairobi. Let's see if it'll let me. Wonder what the weather is like over there. So, must filter out unimportant sensations. Focus our attention on the task at hand and contextualize our decisions with memories of the past and predictions about how our behavior will influence the future. Do you understand? Do you understand that the thoughts you think, the sensations that you feel, the brain is on top of all of that, including the exclusion of sensations? Now, I'll get into that a little bit later, but now we know what's happening with our prefrontal cortex. So when people say prefrontal cortex, that's exactly this part of the brain that we're talking about. Okay, so behaviors and personality traits unique to humans often depend on the prefrontal cortex. That's why we're always concerned. I say we as if I am an MD or a neuroscientist. I am certified in function, thanks to Dr. Michael Lee. But I am not a neuroscientist or neurologist. But if you go to brainfacts.org, you too can have access to looking around at our wonderful brain. And if you stick with me every day, we'll go over learning about why this matters so much to business, because when you are able to regulate your emotions during market crashes, during financial periods of stress, you are able to actually grow your wealth, be healthy, be wealthy, and be free. So that's that area right there. Then there's another area, and I will show you what matters. I'm sure you might have heard of the amygdala. Okay. So cool fact, the amygdala is actually, in Greek, it's amygdala, amygdalia. Anyway, because it looks like almonds. So it's almond shaped, and it's the part of the brain that works with your hippocampus to create long-term memories of specific and often emotional events. Oh, I didn't tell you though. Yeah. The reason we're concerned about if you've had accidents or anything like that, is because it could be damage to the prefrontal cortex, right? So anyway, here is the amygdala. And it's known for linking fear, aggression, and anxiety to knowledge of people or places. Damage to the amygdala reduces aggression, but also makes it difficult for people to avoid painful or threatening situations. The amygdala creates these associations by changing the strength of connections between neurons. That's how important neurons are, which is just wild. A process known as long-term potentiation. By hardwiring memories of emotional events. I didn't realize I could zoom in like that. The amygdala ensures threats can be recognized and avoided in the future. So, when memories serve a survival purpose, your brain is always scanning for a threat. And there's one other structure here I want to show you, which is the vagus nerve, in the cranial vagus nerve. And that is the one how do I isolate? I think there's a way for me to isolate. Okay, structure isolation. So now you can see it just as it is and you know where it is. Okay. And right here, I was close. I was close. Cranial nerve. Let me just search for it because that'll be easier. Cranial nerve vagus. Here we go. Okay. The vagus nerve relays sensory signals from the throat and controls muscles involved in speaking, swallowing, and vomiting. Okay, so that reflex, all that stuff is going to come from here. Why does this matter? Andrea, why are we looking at this? Why are we looking at this? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because when you see that notifications that your crypto wallet or whatever has dropped 30%, your amygdala, those almond shaped things, that's your brain's alarm system, detects threat. And it doesn't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a market crash. Why? Because a threat is a threat is a threat. And within milliseconds, it triggers your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA, floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol is that stress hormone. Adrenaline, I think we're all exposed to that. Quickly, your heart spikes, your breathing becomes shallow. Your blood flow is shifting away from this prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for what? The executive function, strategic thinking, and unfortunately or fortunately, emotional regulation. It's going offline because the blood is literally going from here to where? The amygdala, part of your brain that's going to, so it's redirecting it to your limbs, and your body is preparing you to run from a predator that doesn't even exist. Meanwhile, your vagus nerve, which I just showed you, which controls your parasympathetic nervous system, either helps you stay regulated or contributes to shutdown. If you're lucky and your nervous system is well trained, you might stay in what we call the window of tolerance, which is stressed but still functional. If you go into hyperarousal, which is panic, the racing thoughts, the compulsive checking, or hypoarousal, which is numbness and paralysis and disconnection, you're going to act accordingly. So this is why you freeze when you would otherwise need to act. And it's why clear thinkers suddenly can't think clearly. It's all neurological. It is all the wiring in your brain that is controlling how you think, how you behave. So this is why people who are normally decisive find themselves in paralysis, paralyzed by very simple choices, and why you might think you're failing as a human being, but you're not actually failing. You're responding exactly how an untrained nervous system would respond to perceived existential threat. And here's what most people don't understand. Your brain doesn't care about your financial goals in the long term, doesn't care about your investment strategy. You know what it cares about? Keeping you alive. That's the only thing it cares about. So when you're in a crisis, guess what it does? It assumes the worst case scenario. Not just the worst case scenario, but the worst case scenario is the likely scenario. So you know how you're normally able to say, okay, this, could happen. Unlikely, but it could be, right? Well, your brain is like, nope, it's going to happen. This worst case scenario, everything is going to spontaneously combust and Bitcoin is going to fall to zero. That's going to happen, right? And so it's assuming that this financial loss equals death. Why? Because for most of human history, your resource scarcity really did equal death in the past. And maybe for some people, depending on what part of the world you are. But the part that changes everything, and this is where we can all breathe. Okay. Neuroplasticity, which we used to think, ages 0 to 5 or 8. Yes, that's the part where time when your brain is most spongy and most able to take in languages and deal with changes and also absorb a lot. But even as adults, we have come to find out that your brain's responses are not fixed and emotional states are in fact trainable. So it doesn't have to be super permanent. Okay. So the patterns that feel automatic, the panic, the freeze, the doom spiral, it's just because you have trained yourself. These are like pretty well worn out pathways, right? But they can be rewired. So type in rewired if you think that's good news. And I'm going to just check in here. Michael said cool weather over there in Nairobi, 24 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's like kind of the same here. I don't know how that is cool. David coming in, agreeing with me, too hot. 68 degrees is perfect. Thank you, David. Thank you. Maybe we can help to rewire Shankar's neural pathways so he understands that, you can survive with 68 degrees. I don't think I'll ever get 60. I would be lucky, or 68. I think I would be lucky to get 73. That's kind of ideal for me, right? But nevertheless, here we are. So as I was saying, I've seen people in this industry, in finances and in crypto, who have lost millions, and I mean millions, in market crashes. And one of them we actually met when we were in Las Vegas at the Bitcoin conference. And the funny thing is that he was actually at the billions. When all the tariff things started changing, that took his portfolio took a hit, and he was still standing there as if nothing had happened. And I was like, when you're working with high net worth individuals who have lost millions and billions in crashes, but are recovering really faster than the ones who have never really felt fear, then you start to understand, oh, it's exactly that. Okay, they recover because they have lost before. They have gone through this. They're the ones who have trained their nervous systems to recognize threat responses, and they find a way to return to regulation quickly. Why? Because out in the wild, when you are surviving, remember the name of the show is Stay in the Fight. You have to stay in the fight. That's how you win. The way you get to those millions and billions or overcome whatever your challenge is, you pick up this, what I call emotional infrastructure. And that is not built overnight. And think about it. If you were going to climb Mount Everest, or any mountain, really, I'm always talking about Alex Honnold, because we had recently watched the documentary of his life called Free Solo. And you're not just going to show up at the base and start climbing. You're just not going to do that. You'd have to train your cardiovascular system. You build muscle endurance. You even acclimatize to the altitude. You have to. Anyone who thinks success happens overnight either has never really achieved success, or they're delusional. Because that's not what happens. You put in the reps, you put in the work, you build up that capacity to be able to endure. And it is the same exact thing. Your nervous system works the same exact way. You can train it to handle higher and higher and higher and higher levels of stress. You can do that. And you can do that while maintaining access to clear thinking, but you have to train it. You have to train it. Give me a comment that says training if you not only agree, but you're willing to do the work. Training. Because the people who make fortunes during crashes aren't the ones who don't feel fear. They're the ones here who they're feeling the fear and they're still able to think strategically. That's why everybody watches Warren Buffett's portfolio so often. Did you notice that? Berkshire Hathaway is getting rid of 300 million or 300 billion or however much off the books. They're moving from Apple. They're doing this. They're doing that. Because we all understand that even though, well, first of all, he's really good at predicting, or his company is good at predicting which way the wind is going to blow. But it's also preparation. Remember, preparation is so important to maintaining your calm, but you're not, yes, you have to do that preparation that I described, cardiovascular, building the muscle, building even your acclimatizing to the altitude and your environment and all of that. But you are building your nervous system. You are building resilience at the nervous system level so that when the crisis hits, you have choices. Okay, so it's not about becoming emotionalist, it's not about suppressing your natural responses. It's about being able to hold the discomfort that comes with uncertainty without it hijacking all of your decision making process, because I showed you what happens to your brain. It is literally rerouting blood flow. So you need to make decisions so that you're not compromised, so that instead of being completely hijacked by a threat response, you can acknowledge it, work with it. I have no idea here how long I have been talking. Someone let me know if I go over here. I'm sorry. I just need you to understand that this is not about you're not broken for having these responses. You're human, but you are also so incredibly capable of training, as David put in here, training yourself to respond differently. And that training, that is where the real response, that's where the real wealth gets built and protected. So every person who's ever built lasting wealth has had to figure it out, whether they understood the neuroscience or not. But that's going to be the difference, because they've had to find ways to stay operational when everyone else was losing their minds. They had to develop what could be considered like crisis competence, and that is the ability to think clearly, act decisively, even when the stakes are highest. And it's not like this special talent that you're born with. It's a trainable skill. And if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to treat your nervous system like that high performer, like that one that's hiking Mount Everest or going up El Cap, you can develop it too. The question is, are you ready and are you willing to stop being at the mercy of your untrained nervous system? Are you willing to do that so you can start building a real emotional infrastructure? And if you are, just by looking at, I was preparing for this for today for you guys, looking at the brain and thinking of all of these things and coming up with what are these actual points like. That, wow, yeah, I woke up and I felt so good. And I was like, wow, even though I don't even think it was just me. I think Shankar and I might not have gotten the perfect amount of sleep. Just thinking the right thoughts, understanding what I actually do in the moment when things are falling apart and crazy. And I'm just getting my sleep score here, looking at it, because I want to test something. I want to see how resilient I can be. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I got 3 hours less sleep, 6.5 hours. I know somebody's going to be like, Andrea, the Shankar, aren't you the sleep queen? Yes, I love getting my sleep. I love getting my 9 to 10 hours of sleep, because healthy habits are what help you so that you don't crash. The weight of this world is pretty thick. But yeah, so it's about knowing what to do in that moment. when everything falls apart, but you will have been training days and weeks and even months before that with every thought that you think and every move that you make as a result to how your nervous system is wired. So when the crash happens, and it will happen, you have about 90 seconds to interrupt that threat response before it's fully hijacked, before your system is changing, right? Where you go offline and then you start making these crazy decisions. And that's based on the neurochemical reality of how our brain, how the stress hormones work in our body. Don't believe me? I'm going to bring up Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. Okay. You guys have to, let me see if I can share my screen here. So this woman, here we go. So this woman is pretty cool. So she had a stroke. So she's a neuroanatomist who studied her own stroke, and she identified this 90-second window. You gotta look her up. So she has a whole TED talk. She talks all about it. I can't play it because YouTube will not be so happy with me. But she identified this 90-second window. When you get triggered, your brain releases a chemical cocktail of stress hormones. Okay. And those chemicals have a natural life cycle of about 90 seconds. So if you can avoid feeding the response, if you can avoid feeding the response with additional thoughts and reactions during that window, the chemical flush will naturally metabolize and clear from your system. Don't tell me that's not freaking amazing. Is that amazing? I think that's super cool. Hey, Dr. Schubel. Dr. Liam is in the house. He says 100%. Someone else says good morning and rewired. Okay. So I just think that's incredible. You have 90 seconds. It's very quick. And that's why I say it can't happen overnight. You have to train yourself. You have to put in the reps. You have to figure out, okay, I know in the future there's going to be something that comes up, and just taking these 5 minutes, these 10 minutes every morning, calming myself, even taking deeper breaths. There's a whole live I could go into on how we just breathe. We don't breathe. That's why I started with take a breath. Look around the room. Why? Because I'm trying to get you to see there is no real threat. There's no lion coming through the door. There's no lion, no tiger, no bear. Oh my. Feel your feet on the floor. Tap your collarbone. We are not in danger. Remind your body, we're not in danger. We're safe. We're okay. We're loved. You have to do that, though, during the height of your panic. You have to override in just that 90-second window, because that's all you got. But most people, what they do, they see their portfolio is down 40%. They feel this surge of panic, and then they immediately start feeding it. They start calculating how much they lost. They start imagining the worst case scenario. They start refreshing their trading apps compulsively. And each of these actions are sending signals right to the amygdala that the threat is real, that it's ongoing, which triggers new waves of stress chemicals. Now you got the cortisol kicking in and the adrenaline kicking in. Instead, you need body-based interruption patterns, because your nervous system speaks body language better than it speaks cognitive language. Guarantee you, I'll use men, any man who has a girlfriend, wife, significant other, you tell me how it goes when you tell your wife or your girlfriend, babe, calm down, calm down. It's not that you're saying the wrong, type in calm down if you've ever said calm down. And it doesn't have to be just man to woman. It can be woman to man, man to man, woman to woman. It doesn't really matter. The point is that when your cognitive brain is offline, you can't talk to it. It's like talking to a wall. I myself am going to take a break drinking out of Shankar's mug. Must mean he has my mug. Yeah. Why doesn't calm down work? Because your nervous system speaks body language. Body language. When you're in a crisis, you cannot think your way out of that crisis because your thinking isn't working. It's exactly what has been compromised. So here is your toolkit. Maybe write this down. David has said, calm down. Maybe you said it to your daughter. You could say it to anyone. Calm down. Doesn't work. Why? Here's what you're going to do. Physical discharge. When adrenaline floods your system, it's preparing you for movement. So, what is the answer to that? Movement. Because if you don't move, what happens to all of those chemicals? What happens to all of that energy? It gets trapped inside of your body and it intensifies the panic. It's like, oh God, he's not moving. She's not moving. Let's send more chemicals because it's not working. Okay, so what do? You start feeling your palms are sweating or you feel shaky or whatever. Shake it out. Literally. I mean, literally stand up, shake out your hands, your arms, your whole body, 30 seconds. You can even do it now. And this isn't silly. This is actually what animals do. Did you know that? An animal in the wild, after it escapes predator, you can look. They shake to discharge the stress energy and then they return to baseline. Okay. So that's the first thing you can do is a physical discharge. When you feel that flood of adrenaline in your system, get it out, shake it out. There's a reason why Tony Robbins does that. A lot of people do that before they go on stage. They are preparing their nervous system, their brains to be thinking by getting out what's in their body. Okay. So type in physical discharge. If that sounds good, maybe just move on to tactical breathing. So your breath is the fastest way to signal to your nervous system that you are safe. And that is why I always say your breath is your anchor. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, in a plane, in a train, on a bus, on a bike, on a skateboard, and sitting in your chair, standing up, giving a lecture, getting ready to walk into a room, about to close a deal didn't work, something flopped, you missed your notes, or you whatever. Tactical breathing. So the breath is the quickest way to signal to your body that you are safe. Type in breath. You understand when you are panicked, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. And I'm doing this because I want you to memorize it. If you notice your breath is becoming shallow and rapid, you can consciously slow it down. How do you do that? Simple way, box breathing, 4, 4, 4, 4 for 4 counts. So 4 counts in through your nose. Hold it. Let it out. Hold it. Repeat. And do that 4 times. And when you are extending that exhale, you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's your fancy language for rest and digest. Rest and digest. So you have physically shake it off. Type in shake it off. Tactical breathing. Type in breath. And a cold reset. I meant to actually bring a cold pack up here with me, but so if we were about to go to sleep and I think we were going to maybe take a nap or something like that. And now that I think about it, it wasn't actually a bad thing, but I guess it was just the startling. Shankar put his cold hand on me. Actually, he put the cold can of of water. He had a cold water because he's a waterholic, and he had a cold can of water. And he put it on. But if you put it on your face or your wrist when you're in fight or flight, that's the thing. I was not in fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, it triggers the mammalian dive reflex. Okay, so that immediately slows your heart rate and that shifts you out of the fight or flight. So if you're noticing yourself kind of flighty, you're noticing you feel just maybe anxious or whatever, go and do, and again, it depends on where you are, but if you can, get to your sink, splash some cold water on your face. If it's cold outside, get up, go outside, get that cold gust of wind. All of that is going to, if you want to remember to do that, especially during those volatile market days, I have a feeling we're going to run into those very quickly. So when panic hits, 30 seconds of cold water on your face can bring you back to operational. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? And grounding. So when you're spinning in these catastrophic scenarios, and by the way, if you want access to all of this, everything that I'm talking about, go to AndreaFerguson.com. If it's easier, just go to mycryptoalliance.com, navigate to the resources. So either go to my first and last name.com or go to mycryptoalliance.com, and I'll give you all of these tips, these calm tips for market crashes. You can also, I invite you to come into the Telegram channel. That's where everything is. That's because what is the point? Wealth is emotional. Wealth is emotional, and you have to stay operational. But when your mind is spinning in these catastrophic scenarios, you need to anchor yourself. You really need to anchor yourself. And the way you do that, you can also name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. You're using your senses to pull your attention out of the panic, out of that panic loop, and back into the present moment. That's why the more you practice it, the better it gets. I'm going to fly through these next ones, which is the vocal reset, humming, singing. That's why it's so good to listen to music. And I have a theory, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I have a theory that people in countries and cities and places where there's not a whole lot of wealth, my theory is they sing more and they dance more. And I think it's because, actually, I know it's because I'm reading a lot about this. Our ancestors used to drum a lot. Hum, drum, chant, sing. And I don't mean to make it seem like if you have no money, then you're primitive. But I do think that we are a lot more connected to the earth. We're just more grounded when we don't have a lot of money and resources. And I think that is, no, again, I know it's because humming and singing or even sighing. You ever notice you hear people they're just so incredibly vocal? It's like, why? This person is just so loud. Shankar is actually, he's loud too. Maybe he just naturally knows how to be regulated, but he'll have the loudest yawn and whatever. These people who are comfortable in their body, it's actually because that is what regulates you. So whenever you hum, drum, chant, sigh, you activate your vagus nerve and you shift towards regulation. So when you're singing and you're dancing, you're doing all of these things, you regulate yourself. And when the markets crash, you should absolutely go and hum and sing. Or if you are just, something is happening internally, you need to find a private space, hum for 60 seconds, do whatever you got to do. It sounds ridiculous, but it works. And it works because it directly stimulates the neural pathways that control your calm and connect response. Give you a real example of how this plays out. I'm so sorry if my gain was really loud. Oh, actually, I'm going to take a moment to read Michael's comment, which is my son is really into crypto. He's been reading, hoping to start investing soon. I'd love to know firsthand how this works. Love to. Yeah, great. So go to mycryptoalliance.com. Michael, we would love to have you gain more information. And actually, we have a webinar coming up really soon. Also, follow the Crypto Alliance, follow Shankar Ponsley, but most importantly, mycryptoalliance.com. Navigate over to the resources, and you will get every update and notification on ways. The webinar is actually free. It's coming up. Shankar, if you could write that in the comments so that Michael knows, we'd love to help you, because that's the whole point. Emotional regulation is not just for the sake of staying emotional, right? The title of this show is Stay in the Fight. And that was intentional. You want to emotionally reset. It's just crazy to me how the most important aspect of finances, of business, is literally your nervous system. And it's the least talked about. Regulating your nervous system is the least talked about thing ever in like the history of every industry. And especially in finances, it's super important. It's the least talked about, the most important, in my opinion. And so you have to stay regulated. But the purpose of staying regulated is to move. And the movement I want you to make is to join the Crypto Alliance so that you can grow your wealth. But I was going to give you some real examples of how this plays out. So you wake up, you see your portfolio is down 50%, and your first response, which makes sense, it's everything we talked about. Your chest is tightening, your heart is racing, and your mind is immediately going to that worst case. Remember, it's not just worst case, it's most likely case. This is absolutely going to happen. And instead of checking prices again, you stand up, shake for 30 seconds, do a tactical breathing for 1 minute, splash cold water on your face. And now, only now, do you look at the numbers with the goal of making just one clear decision. That's how easy it can be to avoid making worse decisions for financial loss. You stand up, shake it off, get that cold water or cold exposure, and then you come back and you make a clear decision. And folks, it's not just with finances. This is with relationships. This is with anything. That's why I want you to sign up, to get involved. Do you understand what is happening? Do you understand where we are in history? Beyond, Israel and Iran and talks of nuclear this and that, 12-day war and all that. Economically, we are in the most pivotal shift happening in human history. And a lot of it has to do with, you can just turn on any news cycle and you'll hear them talking about it. It is the greatest time in human history to be able to attain wealth. But I will tell you right now, attaining wealth without being able to retain it means nothing. You will become like every other person that wins the lottery and whose life is right back to normal in a year. Same as a person, what do they say? A person in a car accident or something like that. They're both back to the same baseline in a year. Well, obviously, the person that went through the wreckage has the drive and the motivation to come back to baseline. But the person who just skyrocketed to, $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, if you don't have that emotional regulation, and that relationship with money is not going to be as tight as you think it is. And it affects every part of your life, every aspect of your life. So getting having emotional regulation translates into everything that you do. So, couple more scenarios and then we can stop. This is so funny because I haven't even I have so much more to give, but I gotta let you get back into your day. So let's say your partner sees the loss, right? Your partner sees the loss and starts panicking. I'm wrong. You see your partner's loss. And this has happened to me before. I mean, I think at a certain point, Shankar tried to shield me. Actually think it's quite healthy for you to have exposure and insight into your what's going on in your life, especially during market highs and lows, because you have to you have to know your tolerance level. But let's just say your partner sees the loss and starts panicking, which triggers your own panic about security and conflict. Instead of immediately defending or attacking or saying this, go and excuse yourself for 2 minutes. Do some grounding exercises. Everything I said, hum quietly to activate your vagus nerve, and then return to the conversation from a regulated state. Like I said, not just with anything in your relationship. You got to learn when to start walking away, when to regulate and to come back. Funny thing is, with crypto specifically, and probably other sectors in the finance industry, that thing can turn around and change so quickly, and you just put yourself in a crazy state for no reason. That's why you have to learn to just stick to the plan. Because when you stick to the plan, probably 9 times out of 10, it works out the way that it's supposed to. But if you start going into panic mode, then you start operating from really bad places. And the last thing, you start calculating how much you've lost, how long it'll take to recover, whether you're financially ruined. But instead of feeding the spiral, if you interrupt it with that physical reset that I mentioned, shaking it off, breathing, cold water, and then ask yourself one simple question. What's the next right move? What's the next right move? Even if it's a hard move, and not the next 10 moves. We overwhelm ourselves. Just ask yourself, what is the next right move? I want you to understand that you don't necessarily have to feel calm to act wisely, which I know sounds super opposite of what you may be thinking. But you just need to be regulated enough to access choice. So all I want to do is give you back that ability to access choice. And when your thinking brain is offline, that place that controls all the executive functions goes away because the brain is rerouting all of that blood to a different part of your brain, amygdala, which goes into threat and panic and all of that. You don't have choice, but you can have choice. The goal is to eliminate stress well, actually that may not be entirely humanly possible to eliminate stress, but to prevent stress from eliminating your ability to think strategically. So I've been training mindfulness daily, and I mean actual training, not just thinking about it, not just thinking about it. And if you have been training mindfully, your nervous system resets faster. And I've noticed that you become built for resilience. You start to expand that window of tolerance. What might hijack someone else and knock them offline for hours will only maybe knock you offline for a few minutes. But if you haven't been training, even if this is still new to you, you do have this 90-second window. You have the ability to interrupt what might take over, interrupt that cascade. So please remember, wealth is built and protected by people who can think calm under pressure. Not people who never feel pressure, but people who have trained themselves to be able to work with it instead of being destroyed by it. Your nervous system is either your greatest asset or your biggest liability, and the choice is yours. So, tomorrow, I'm going to talk about why we regulate specifically for health, wealth, and freedom. I wanted to talk about it today, kind of went on a roll. Let me know that this was helpful for you, though. I find it to be helpful to remind us why, what happens to our brain, few calm tips when the market crashes, because I'm telling you, it's inevitable. It's not a question of if, it's when, and how you respond. And then tomorrow we'll zoom out and talk about why this matters, why emotional regulation isn't self-help, and why it's not just about feeling better, even though you do, but how you can build and protect the life you really want to live. That, I think, living is one thing. To live the life you really want to live is quite another, right? So it's a lived reality and not just an aspiration. So that's what I have for you today. I am so grateful that you're here. And just keep that in mind, what I said about wealth and how it is emotional and how you need to stay operational. You're going to need this sooner than you think. You're going to want to stay in the fight. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you comment, help us reach more people. Go to AndreaFerguson.com so I can get you in the Telegram right away so you can have the daily affirmation tips. The daily affirmations, the mantras, the regulation tips. I send them every day. That's all it takes. You just gotta wake up, look at your phone. Now you have a tip that you didn't have yesterday, and hopefully it'll keep you in the fight, okay? Stay in the fight. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.